What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Kevin on YouTube shit. Hey man, say man, we are Lit to man, turn. Tell you to my favorite day, straight hood outside. Big crip in the gang, straight hood outside shit, man. Free Palestine, free Congo, Russia, do your thing, and Texas, stand the fuck up. Each day is you ready to be a better version of yourself. Never let someone bring you down. Always fight back. Never let someone tell you are. Also, never put yourself in a position I'm alone. Let's stay humble. Let's get on revolution on this movement. Keep Yahweh first. Coming to the Black Hebrew Israelite. As a real Jew, we out here. Alright, boom. Today, it's my favorite day. Straight hood outside. Big crip in the gang, straight hood outside shit. Alright, gang. You know what I'm saying? It's been the rap game has been interesting. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, we're continuing to evolve in the rap game. You know what I'm saying? With the people we got and, you know, up and coming people. You know what I'm saying? Crip. This is, you know, I check a lot of this stuff that's been going on, you know what I'm saying? Because we just talked about the Drake and Kendrick beef, you know, lawsuit. But this is kind of different. You know what I'm saying? This is basically Swamp Stories Drake. Like, how he became and how his, you know, the people behind him, gang ties, you know what I'm saying, been putting in work and, you know what I'm saying, how he can continue to, you know what I'm saying, stay in the rap game till today after so much shit has been happening in and out the streets, just in the industry, you know what I'm saying? So, hey, this is pretty lit, you know what I'm saying? No cap, you know what I'm saying? You know, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Let's get into it. Hey gang, we've been wanting to watch this shit for the minute. This is Drake, Swamp Stories, his street life. Let's get into it. Hey man, everybody wants to say Drake a singer.
Ain't no scared.
Scared of what?
Kendrick and his handle.
Kendrick Lamar. Oh, you're scared of Kendrick? Tell him come to town.
Shout out to Swamp Stories, man.
We gotta make Kendrick Lamar on feet. We gotta make Drive By Q. Baby King. Drive By Q. Toronto top diva top 5 sent a warning out to Kendrick Lamar and letting him know that Toronto ain't LA and you coming, you getting stepped on.
Cuz really living like that, cuz I bet you he come back.
Fighting to protect their turf. In the case of Barnaby, the victim of mistaken identity.
It's a beef between two groups that's caused all this retaliation.
We're so used to seeing the kids play outside and stuff, and now it's not even like that anymore.
Boy, you play outside, you catch a bullet.
Gangs rule the territory in the so-called Gallo
certain areas.
These parts for a long time. Just ask the police.
Toronto got some shit going
In today's
on.
age of hip-hop, your image is crucial, and most importantly, your first impression is everything. Like when a rapper is growing a fan base, he first must cultivate an image that validates his music, or else his music simply won't be taken seriously. However, that image isn't always a reflection of reality, especially back in the day. For example, this was Tupac at his rich suburban high school just 2 years before starting to rap.
If you look at the statistics, they're staggering again, you know, and so I think they're scared because they're realizing that they goofed.
Not to mention that the Migos grew up in an upper-class suburban family, along with Lotto, Tyga, Lil Yachty, and basically
There's a lot of shit in the industry that people are not talking about.
My point is that because all these rappers came into fame with this fake image already cultivated, the fans bought into it and they avoided the corny, wannabe perceptions. Basically, when your image is perfected and your first impression is on point, the fans want to believe you. However, when it comes to Drizzy Drake, he is the poster child for soft and pretending to be something he's not. The first reason is, of course, because he was famous in acting before he started rapping. But really, this shouldn't matter at all, because Tupac was an actor before rapping as well, and nobody holds that against him. But I think the biggest difference and most important reason is that Drake is from Canada.
No. We are polite. We are Canadians.
Yes. In everyone's mind, Canada is some paradise land where everyone is wealthy, no violence ever occurs, and street activities don't exist. So given that, Drake must be soft and all of his homies are jokes. Now, of course, both of these takes are rooted in American ignorance, plain and simple. It's very hard as an American to take anything Canadian seriously, I must admit. And my goodness,
Accent doesn't help, Brody.
but as you'll see in this video, all of these opinions are absolute nonsense. Firstly, Toronto is no vacation. And secondly, Drake's crew was one of the most dangerous and wicked crews in all of hip-hop. And believe it or not, but I'm willing to say that Drake's crew was more dangerous than his rivals in Compton. Yep, in this video, you'll see why OVO is nothing to play with. But before we get into it,
let's find out.
Intro.
Let's find out. Drake be on some shit.
The story begins in 1984
Is it
when
really
a
gonna be like some
English
shit?
teacher named Sandy would meet a soul musician named Dennis from Memphis, Tennessee. The two would meet at a bar in Toronto where Dennis was performing, and it was basically kind of a random interaction.
We met in Toronto. I was in Toronto playing drums with Jerry Lee Lewis. And Sandy was at our show. And I was looking for a pack of cigarettes. And she was standing there at the bar when I asked the bartender where could I find cigarettes. So she said, "Here, have one of mine." So, and that's how it started.
Long story short, the two would hit it off. Dennis would move to Toronto, they'd get married, and they'd have a kid in 1986. This would of course be a son named Aubrey Drake Graham, their only child. Now it sounds like everything was peaches and cream, but in reality that wasn't the case at all. With Dennis being a low-scale musician and Sandy being an English teacher, money wasn't easy to come by. And as a result of this, the couple raised Aubrey in an affordable part of the city known as Weston. For those who are unfamiliar, Weston has an over 70% immigrant population, with 34% of which being black. Statistically, this would make Weston the blackest city in California, and I only say that to say that Drake grew up in a very diverse environment. On top of this, the family's financial struggles would get even worse after a divorce and when Dennis moved back to Memphis. Now, a young Aubrey would no longer have a father present from the age of 6, and to make matters worse, his father would go to prison. This was no easy task for Sandy, but thankfully her community and family would step in to help. Because of his grandmother and help from the synagogue, he was able to attend private school and have a very strong education. In addition to this, his family was able to save enough money to move out of Weston and into the upscale Forest Hill neighborhood.
Enough about the car. Let's go inside. Hey, Bubby. Yeah. Me and my grandma have a little thing where my mom doesn't let her eat chocolate, but my grandma slides me a little extra cheddar on the side, and I make sure she gets her daily chocolate dose. That's my grandson.
Yeah, Aubrey's life was turning out pretty good, and on top of this, he would find his first passion in high school. Long story short, while acting in a school play, an agent would discover him and put him on. So at 15 years old, Aubrey would get a major role in the hit TV show Degrassi.
One morning, though, you stay away from my girl.
Things were going great, but at 18 years old, he realized that acting wasn't his true passion and his heart was no longer in it. Deep down, he wanted to be a rapper. Oh, hell
He wanted them big
is what
booty
everyone
hoes.
around him was thinking.
All
But
them
after
flat
studying the
booty
likes
white
of
hoes
Jay-Z,
wasn't
the
in his
Clips,
style,
Mac
bro.
Dre, and more, he was certain that he could make it happen.
He wanted this
So
porn
every night
star.
he'd sneak into the studio on set and record songs all night long. At first it was definitely rough, but he was persistent and he kept getting better and better. Basically, he spent every single night in the studio to the point where it began affecting his performance in acting, and the directors knew that something was up. Well, long story short, he no longer cared about his acting career, as now music was
Drake trying to be
destined
the
to be
bully?
his future. Without telling a soul, he was in the midst of creating a rap career under the simple name of Drake. Then in 2006, out of nowhere, he would release his debut mixtape, Room for Improvement. The mixtape, although not a Picasso, would sell 6,000 copies, cultivating a local buzz in Toronto. This was enough to catch the attention of some major artists like Trey Songz, Lupe Fiasco, and more. But most importantly, Jazz Prince, the son of the infamous music mogul Jay Prince, would run across Drake on MySpace and see major potential. From here, he would fly him to Houston, sign him to his label, link him with Lil Wayne, and the rest is history.
Damn.
We were introduced through another
he's already a movie star,
His
so
name is Jazz Prince.
actor.
He found me on MySpace and loved my music on MySpace. And he was like, man, I know Lil Wayne, and I'm going to play him your music one day. And I was just like, yeah, right. You know, like, you never really. We would talk, and he called me one day, and I was in the barbershop getting my hair cut, and he was like, yo. And I was like, friend. And he's like, yo, what's up? It's Weezy. He was like, I'm starting this thing called Honey, and I'd really love for you to
Drake
be part of it.
impressions
So
are
I wanna
horrible,
fly
my
you
boy.
out to Houston and meet you. And he did just that the day after, and that formed our relationship. And I was like this quiet kid in the corner of the bus. You know?
As we all know, over the next couple of years, Drake would become the biggest thing in hip-hop. And this major superstar fame would bring a lot of pride to his hometown of Toronto, as he was breaking new barriers for what Canadian rappers can do. This, of course, must feel amazing, gaining the admiration from your own region. But unfortunately, there's also major downsides to being a famous rapper as well. To put it simply, a lot of people from the hoods and trenches of Toronto were jealous that somebody like Drake would represent their city.
Like, okay, so you're telling me this Canadian Jew child actor is gonna be what? Is gonna be like someone that we say is in our top 5, top 10, whatever. It's like it was a hard sell.
It's almost like LeBron when he first came in.
Forest Hill is going to be the rapper who represents us, and he's the one who made it? Nah, let's do something to him. And this is when Drake encounters his first problems in the wicked streets of Toronto. May 15th, 2009. It's a Friday night in Toronto, and Drake has a night out with his beautiful date named Chantel. Together, the two ride out in the back of a Maybach on the way to a fancy restaurant. Riding high off his career success, Drake is rocking a $100,000 AP watch, an iced-out chain given to him by Lil Wayne, and $4,000 cash in his pocket.
Bo is stacked up, racked up.
Long story short, they go out to dinner, have a good time, and at 9 p.m. they hop back in the Maybach.
The Maybach.
As they await the driver to take off, boom, a handgun is pressed against Drake's window. Oh shit, one man demands that Drake roll down his window while his friend stands in front of the car, armed, pointed at the driver. They demand that Drake takes off his watch, his chain, and hands over everything in his pocket. So with no real choice, Drake gives up everything, including his prized Lil Wayne chain. After he gives it all up, the men spring back to their car, not knowing that Toronto police were already alerted and are just around the corner. So as soon as the robbers take off in their car, Toronto police are right on their trail.
Damn.
Thankfully, they're able to corner them in up the street, and Drake gets everything back.
Fuck 12.
While being the civilian that he is, Drake tells police exactly what happened, and the two guys are arrested.
That's crazy.
Now, does this make Drake a snitch? No. No? Okay, fine. Yes, it does. But who cares? What's most important is that he wasn't hurt, he got his stuff back, and he decided to move different for the rest of his career. He was understandably shaken up by the incident, as he would tell the New York Times that I feel unsafe in Toronto at all times. On top of this, he believed that this wasn't a random or isolated incident. He believed that he was set up by a gang. My chain was tucked the entire night, and I had a big coat on covering my watch. They didn't ask for anything but those two items. On top of this, my date had an expensive purse and a bunch of jewelry, and they didn't ask for any of that. How the hell did they know I had a chain on and a nice watch? And most importantly, why didn't they ask for anybody else's stuff?
You think it was
Regardless of all that, getting robbed in your own city as the face of the city must not feel great. Not to mention that something like this could easily end a rap career. So Drake was understandably furious, and he was going to make sure that this could never happen again. He knew that he desperately needed some muscle in Toronto. In the States, he had the protection of guys like Jay Prince and Birdman, and in Toronto, he needed that level of street power as well, or even more. So now we enter the chapter of Drake's very first Canadian gang ties. That introduces us to a man named Mussle,
Drake turned
also
to
known as
like, he
Chubbs,
said, man,
native of
ain't no
Toronto's
damn way
Scarborough
this gonna ever happen.
district. Chubbs is a big dude, and in Scarborough, he had a
Okay.
reputation for being a bully in the streets. While Chubbs and Drake would meet through mutual friends very early in his career, but Drake honestly thought nothing of it. He heard that Chubbs was a respected member of a local gang, but why would he need to be around something like that? Well, then comes the scary robbery incident, and Drake now knew that having goons on his side might be a good idea. So after the incident, the first person that he called was Chubbs, and just like that, they locked in. This now meant that Drake had some serious firepower in the streets, and if you don't believe me, let me introduce you to Chubbs' gang. The Galloway Boys, also known as GUA, were founded in the 1990s in Toronto's Scarborough district. The Galloway Boys were mostly of Jamaican descent, but it was more so a matter of neighborhood versus ethnic background. They obviously claimed the Galloway neighborhood, but more specifically the various housing projects in the region. Well, at first, the crew was known for being hustlers, stacking millions through illicit imports, and moving weight throughout Canada. Essentially, they rose from dirt poverty as first-generation immigrants to the coolest guys in Toronto with Mercedes, Beamers, chains, and of course the women.
I don't know why
And
it's
if you
always
know
like
anything
that.
about Toronto women, they're worth risking your life for, I promise you. Well, as far as operating money in the streets, things would go pretty smoothly for the Galloway Boys for the first decade. There were no rivals or really any competition in the neighborhood, so their only worry was ducking the feds. But then came the early 2000s, when they got cocky and started to expand a little too far into the wrong hood. Around the year 2001, the Galloway Boys got greedy and attempted to start moving weight in the infamous Orton Park housing projects. And these specific projects, well, they were already occupied by the infamous Orton Park gang. Clearly, GUA didn't take Orton seriously at all, and this resulted in their very first consequence of the Toronto streets. October 10th, 2002, 1:30 p.m. It's a regular day in the life of GUA's leader named Norris Allen as he's patrolling around GUA territory like any other day. But little does he know the Orton Boys are on a mission to send a message to stop coming to their hood.
That's what I try to tell
cut
people,
the
man.
head off the snake.
It's a
Well,
gang
at 1:40
everywhere.
p.m.,
True.
Norris decides to hop in his
This
car
shit
to head
going
off and
down
head out of the
everywhere.
hood. But coincidentally, at this exact time, the Norris Boys pull up and walk up right to his car. They look at him, and without hesitation, they start blowing.
Especially in the suburbs, nigga.
This was a major blow to the streets of Toronto, but more importantly to the Galloway Boys. Norris was their leader, and for Orton Park to eliminate him just like that was disrespectful in the worst way. So now GUA, who had never been in beef before, had a major choice to make. We can either accept defeat and just own up to the fact that going into their territory is what caused this, or we can stand up to them and go for retaliation. And unfortunately, the Galloway Boys would choose the latter. However, at first, they were simply not ready. These guys were hustlers, not steppers. Frankly, the whole gang didn't even own firearms. So step number one was getting some BAM machines. And in order to do this, they began hijacking shipments of BAMs coming across the Canadian border. And just like that, by 2003, Ontario police say that the Galloway Boys had enough high-powered ammunition to take down a small army. Damn, this was serious, and they were destined to get revenge for their beloved leader. When I say they, I'm really talking about their new leader, Tyshawn Riley, who organized a group of dedicated steppers called the Throwbacks. Right away, GUA's Throwbacks started stepping, eliminating Orton Park members left and right. Even the leader, Tyshawn himself, was stepping. He was dedicated to finding an op, and sadly, this would be his downfall. That takes us to March 11th, 2004. It's a regular day in GUA's hood. Tyshawn is driving up Nielsen Road, the same street where their former leader lost his life. Because of this, he's already angry and bloodthirsty, and as he approaches the red light of Finch Avenue, he looks into an SUV right next to him. For whatever reason, he believes that the men in the SUV are Orton Park members and that they're sliding through his territory. So without hesitation, he simply rolls his window down, and sadly, the rest is history. The passenger and driver are both hit, but thankfully the driver is able to head off to the emergency room where they save his life. However, his passenger would sadly not make it. As it turns out, this was a case of mistaken identity, and Tyshawn had targeted random civilians.
I feel
Boy,
so
just mad as hell.
I get past it. I did say my piece. I did forgive them, which I do. I really do.
You forgive, but you don't forget.
Exactly. And I forgive them because if I don't, just imagine the animosity, the hunger I will have to be walking with. I don't need that in my life. I don't think anybody understand the detrimental and the tragic that I've been through. I feel like I was the one that's been dead.
This was a major case in Toronto as two upstanding citizens targeted randomly at a red light is cause for serious concern. So immediately police began asking around for clues, but sadly nobody in the community would speak up. This is because G-Way was so intimidating in their community that no one would dare go against them. Eventually, police would solve the case, but for the next few months, Tyshawn was still out and about. You'd think that after doing something so evil, your guilt would eat you up. Like, I can't believe I just claimed the life of a random person who didn't deserve it. Maybe I should start seeking forgiveness and leave this lifestyle. On top of this, you think that you'd want to lay low and do your best to stay off the radar, right?
Hell no.
Well, nope, not for Tyshawn and G-Way. Even after this incident, they were still determined to target Orton Park rivals. So just a month later, Tyshawn himself would target the two that he believed claimed the life of Norris Allen. He would drive by himself into the Orton Park projects and simply just start letting it blow.
That's some crazy shit.
And just like that, a bloodbath would jump off that Toronto had never seen before. In fact, Toronto's homicide detective Wayne Banks believes that Tyshawn escalated everything, and he describes him as the purest form of evil, with no regard for human life. And yes, this is the exact sentiment that Scarborough natives would use to describe G-Way. Just a purely evil organization, with no regard for anyone's lives. Well, thankfully, a month after this, Tyshawn would be arrested and sentenced to life in prison.
His boy.
However, regardless of his arrest, what he kicked off was simply unstoppable. His new generation of G-Way were ruthless, and unfortunately after this, it was body for body for body for body.
Gunshots ring out in this quiet Scarborough neighborhood. Toronto paramedics say one man was found dead here at the scene, another transported to hospital.
It's those people that started shooting. They were just running. This one girl said she was seeing people just dropping behind her.
There was some type of a confrontation with Mr. Walker, and shortly after that confrontation, Mr. Ford was shot dead.
The former hustlers were now headhunters, and on top of this, their membership was growing every single year. And of course, to tie this back around to Drake, one of the new members was Chubbs, who allegedly gained a high rank within the gang. For doing what?
So he was
well,
G-Way
word on the streets is that he was an absolute crash out. And most importantly, by the time he became friends with Drake, he had enough say-so to get things done. If you know what I mean. So this is who Drake began running with after he was robbed, and honestly, he was thrown into the middle of a gang war that he had no idea how to maneuver. So yes, having them on his side did make him more powerful, but it also made him a serious target. As you would imagine, at Orton Park, seeing the biggest rapper in the world hanging out with their ops must not be a good feeling. Like, oh, you want to take sides in our politics? Okay, well you're an op too. And to make matters worse, when Drake started hanging with G-Way was the exact time that their war sparked right back up. In fact, upon Drake's arrival, it happened to be G-Way's most wicked period ever. And the guys that Drake was hanging out with on a daily basis were simultaneously doing serious damage in the Toronto streets. These would be guys like Ramon Williams and Adham Kamis, G-Way members known for being absolute crash outs. Now we'll get back to them in a second, and you'll see why they're important. But for the meantime, let's focus back on Drake. We're now in 2011, and Drake's career is evolving from like a love song R&B singer-rapper to an attempted new image. An image of a rapper who should be taken seriously on the mic and also in the streets as well.
Drake trying to get that
I think it
street
was an
legend
attempt
started,
to ditch the emotional soft rapper image to a more street-adjacent character. 2011, he kind of starts rapping crazy on the tracks. At first, people were laughing at it, like, really? And if you can remember, it all peaked with his hit song headlines.
Tuck my napkin in my shirt cause I'm just mobbing like that. You know good and well that you don't want a problem like that. You gon' make Ain't someone around me catch a body like that. No, don't do it. Please don't do it. Cause one of us goes in and we all go through it. And Drizzy got the money, so Drizzy gon' pay it. Those my brothers, I ain't even gotta say it. That's just something they know.
The bold lyrics made everyone laugh, including me. Like, what a joke. This Canadian rapper talking about someone around him catching bodies? Come on. Even Charlemagne the God would clown him for this on the radio.
Corny guy.
It went hard,
He's just a corny dude. In that new Headlines video, he looks extra corny. It's like, Drake, why are you thugging now? Why are you dressed all in black? Why you got on black gloves? Why you got a whole bunch of dudes around you dressed in black? And he has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. Like, seriously, like they look like a flash mob that's about to run up in H&M and take everything. Like, none of them look like a threat. He has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. None of them look like a threat.
It's a big match.
Making niggas mad.
None of them look like a threat.
Little did he know, most of these goons in the video are certified G-Way members who literally were during this time out sliding in the streets of Toronto.
The Toronto police say there's recently been a resurgence of the once notorious gang. And the young thugs who are running G-Way these days, just like their predecessors, are packing firearms and they're not afraid to use them.
In particular, two of these would be the guys I mentioned earlier, Adham and Ramon. And these guys, well, you'll see. That takes us to September 4th, 2011. By this point, the G-Way versus Orton Park beef has split up most of Toronto, basically causing two sides to the city.
That's what I said. When somebody died, bro, that's important, bro.
But for G-Way, they were happy because now they had more people to slide on. And on this day, Ramon happens to see somebody who they just started beefing with post their location at a local Domino's. So literally, for no reason at all, Ramon and Adham hop in their car and go slide to the Domino's. At 5:30, they spin around the block to see if they're still there, and unfortunately, they have no squabbling on their minds. Instead, at 5:45, they stop their car outside, and they start absolutely dumping into the Domino's. Glass shatters everywhere, and everyone jumps down to the ground to take cover. 3 men are injured in the incident, but thankfully, they survive after being rushed to the hospital. Still, though, this was an absolutely insane idea by the G-Way members to just start blowing at a Domino's. What in the world? These guys are the literal definition of crash outs. Like, there's no squabbling going on for G-Way. Well, either way, after doing this, you'd think that these guys would want to duck low and stay out of the way of Toronto police. You know, leave the street life alone for the meantime. But nope, just 2 months later, Ramon would crash out again. And that takes us to November 4th, 2011, 11 p.m. It's nighttime in Scarborough, and Ramon is trapping like any other night. In particular, he has a random customer named Daniel Fuller coming through to cop. And at 11:15, Daniel arrives, hops in Ramon's car, and they go through to discuss the deal. Somehow out of nowhere, the simple interaction turns into an argument where Ramon gets furious and belligerent with Daniel. And unfortunately, for no reason, Ramon whips out and starts unleashing. Daniel is rushed to the hospital where he thankfully survives. However, he is paralyzed for life. Sadly, this was yet another example of the senseless violence caused by the Galloway boys. But thankfully, Toronto police would put their best foot forward and arrest them for all of their crimes. Still, though, the point is that while Drake and all his goons are being clowned for, you know, being soft and all that, they were actually in the field catching bodies and causing havoc. Oh, and believe me, it gets much worse. December 30th, 2011. It's 11 in the morning in Orton Park, and a young man is leaving his apartment on his way to the bus stop. This would be Dimitri Barnaby, a 24-year-old who has no gang affiliations whatsoever. He just so happens to live in Orton Park. Well, unfortunately, on this exact morning, G-Way members are rolling around Orton Park looking for rivals. And at 11:15, they happen to spot Dimitri leaving his building headed for the bus stop. For whatever reason, they assume that he's affiliated with the rivals, and they instantly target him. Sadly, 2 G-Way members hop out of an SUV and run him down. This was yet another case of mistaken identity at the hands of G-Way,
That
a sick,
wrong
continuous trend from the evil crew.
Damn.
Unfortunately, over the next couple of years, it would only get worse and worse. You know, shooting after shooting after shooting after
But they keep on killing the wrong nigga. At this point, shit, it might not be the wrong nigga. I don't fucking know, bitch.
Down in a major way.
In the fall of 2011, during a 4-month period, number 43 Division saw a significant increase in the number of shooting incidents between two groups identified as the Galloway Boys Gang and the Orton Park Gang, who attempted to occupy control of that area or turf.
In conclusion, 41 G-Way members were arrested, resulting in the complete dissemination of their gang. It was all over. Well, at least for the meantime. And pertaining to Drake, well, this meant that his power in the streets went all the way down. All of those G-Way members who he used to run with and would be in his music videos, well, all those guys were now locked in the feds. Actually, I shouldn't say all, because the one guy who was the closest to Drake somehow ducked the indictment. This, of course, would be Chubbs, Drake's #1 enforcer, and really the only reason he was connected to G-Way. Well, after the scary indictment and almost losing his #1 enforcer, Drake would move forward to disassociate Chubbs from the gang life and instead introduce him to the OVO life. This meant that he would hire him as full-time security, shout him out on Instagram, and even mention him in a bunch of songs. Although he was known in the Toronto streets, in America, nobody took Chubbs seriously. But then, all that would be put to bed in the summer of 2014. That takes us to June 12th, 2014. It's a regular Thursday night for Drake as he's recording music in his Calabasas mansion. It's just him, Chubbs, and a sound engineer kicking it when Drake has the idea to invite over a famous producer. This is when Drake allegedly texts the producer named Detail, who's known for working with Lil Wayne, Birdman, Ashanti, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and more. Well, obviously, given the opportunity to work with Drake, Detail drops what he's doing in a heartbeat and vlogs over to Drake's Calabasas mansion. At 9 p.m., he arrives to the gated community, is let in the gate, and drives up to Drake's mansion. He then walks up to the front door, truly excited for the opportunity to work with Drake. This is when Chubbs opens the front door, lets him in, and then out of nowhere just starts swinging on him.
Ooh.
Boom, bam, boom, bam, pow. He shatters his jaw into pieces and knocks him down to the floor. And according to Detail himself, Drake stands right there, looks at him, and does nothing to help. So now with a broken jaw and disoriented, Detail stumbles out of the house, gets into his car, and drives himself to the hospital. There, as he's awaiting surgery, he sits back and wonders, what the hell just happened? Why would Drake invite me over for his bodyguard to beat the shit out of me? And then he's just standing there like he set it up? It makes no sense. Like, did I do something to Drake that pissed him off? Or was this just his bodyguard Chubbs acting a fool? What was it? To this day, we still don't know the specifics, but either way, Detail would hit Drake with a massive lawsuit. So yeah, this is how Chubbs started to gain his reputation in the industry. A big old bully who does not play about his boss, Drizzy Drake. So now you can see that Drake was kind of moving like the mafia. In LA or everywhere he went, he had Chubbs, and then when he goes to Houston, he's got mob ties. In Louisiana, he's got Birdman, and the list goes on. Basically, he was well protected with real street connections in the States. But in Toronto, it was a whole different story. After the 2014 G-Way takedown, Drake was a major target in Toronto for two reasons. Number one is that he no longer had any street muscle or any protection, as G-Way was now completely weakened. And secondly, because he chose G-Way sides in the beef, the people who they were rivals with wanted Drake as well.
Is that why he went to Australia?
By choosing G-Way's side, you put a battery in their back by giving them shoutouts and OVO chains, basically forcing their rivals to see you as one of them as well. So to Orton Park, the Malvern boys, and everyone else who was beefing with G-Way, they wanted to do something to Drake. Now Drake naturally recognized this, and he now knew that he needed more protection in the streets. And in late 2014, he would thankfully meet another group full of crash outs. This time, the most random
more protection! Glass.
It's the annual OVO Bounce tournament in Toronto, where Drake organizes a team full of NBA players and friends to play against the best local talent.
Damn!
And on this day, star players like Brandon Jennings, Lou Williams, Tristan Thompson, and Jordan Clarkson are playing on Team OVO, while the atmosphere in the building is electric as the teams keep going back and forth despite the talent level difference. It even gets to a point where Brandon Jennings is cooking so hard that he takes his shirt off and throws it into the crowd. Then right after, the guy who's guarding him scores on him and takes his shirt off as well and throws it into the crowd. This would be a known local hooper in Toronto named Hassan Ali, and after doing this, the crowd would go absolutely nuts. Eventually, the OVO team full of NBA players wins, but either way, it was a legendary night. Just like that, Ali was a local sensation by the name of Shirt Off Shawty. Now to us, this all seems kinda corny, but Drake was so impressed that he actually went up to talk to him after the game.
Yo, Brody, you're cooking out there on the court. Who are you? What's your name? Where are you from?
Top 5 is ecstatic. The biggest rapper in the world is showing him attention, and he decides to seize the opportunity. He tells Drake that he's an upcoming rapper by the name of Top 5, and of course Drake is probably like,
Alright, I don't want to hear about that.
Yet another struggling rapper trying to get me to put them on. I don't want to hear it. But little does Drake know, not only is Top 5 a struggle rapper and raw basketball player, but he's also a known stepper for a dangerous Toronto gang. This would be the Go Get 'em gang, also known as GGG, a wicked crew of crash-outs that's upcoming in the streets. Basically, they claim 3 neighborhoods as their own: Jane, Lawrence Heights, and Driftwood, an area known as the Jungle. And for those who aren't familiar, this is pretty much the worst area of Toronto, known for all the pow, pow, pow. Well, once Drake learns of this, he starts watering at the mouth. Please get me in contact with Top 5. I need to talk to him. I heard he's a stepper and his gang is full of crash-outs. Please get me in contact with them. So just like that, Drake brings Top 5 into OVO and adopts him as one of his crew members. And immediately, he even shouts his hood out with a song called Jungle. So if you didn't know what that was about, now you do.
I am Drake Shooter. No, Broski's in Drake's body.
See, that's what people was talking about. He was crashing out.
And on top of this,
and
Drake would
get
constantly shout out
involved.
Top 5 on Instagram, completely elevating his status. Now, obviously, adding Top 5 and GGG to OVO's arsenal did help their street muscle, but it also put them in the middle of a brutal gang war. And this would only add to the list of Toronto gangs who hate Drake by association. So yes, while it was more street muscle for Drake, it was also more ops added to the list. Yes, at this time, GGG were at it with the Falstaff Crips, a dangerous gang claiming 3 projects on Falstaff Avenue. As you'll see, this beef is wicked, and if you don't believe me, that takes us to GGG's very first skit. May of 2015. It's a regular day in the life of a Falstaff Crip member named Shamarky Wyatt, also known as Marky Bands. Marky is known in Toronto for stepping on his rivals, particularly GGG, and stacking his money up. Basically, he's a rich crash-out who allegedly did a lot of damage to GGG. So much damage that he figured that it would be best to leave Toronto and to lay low for the rest of time. And when I say leave Toronto, I don't mean going to a suburb or even a city in the vicinity. Instead, Marky moved to the furthest possible place he could while staying in Canada. That takes us to the small town of Fort McMurray, one of the most northern and remote towns on Earth. 5 hours away from the nearest city, this town is not for the weak. On top of this, it has a subarctic climate, meaning long, blistering winters where the temperatures range from -20
That
to
nigga
5
was trying to
degrees.
chill
A
out
town where you
for
won't
sure.
see the sun for months on end. Doctors warn that if you stand outside for more than 30 seconds, you can get frostbite and hypothermia. So yeah, this is where Marky Bands moved, all in order to allegedly duck GGG. It would take over 28 hours of brutal driving from Toronto to reach him, so realistically, it's not realistic. However, GGG was serious about Get Back, so making this long trip was not out of the question.
Damn! 37-hour trip?
And on May 24th, 2015, a group of GGG members decide to make the trip. For 2 days, they stay on the road with nothing but revenge on their minds. The long trip through various provinces finally comes to an end on May 26th around 3 in the morning. And as soon as they arrive, they waste no time at all, as somehow they know exactly where Marky Bands lives. Probably a female. So at 4 in the morning, after getting food from the gas station, they mask up, blick up, and head to his apartment. At 4:15, the members stop their car in front of his building, and 3 of them get out and walk up to his unit. They knock on his door hard and wake him up out of his sleep. Obviously, Marquis thinks it's some sort of emergency, so he goes to open up the door. And right there, that's when he's met with the masked up GGG members. Bam. This was truly Mission Impossible. In no way, shape, or form did Marky Bands ever expect them to come that far to get him. GGG were proving to be a different breed, and this is who Drake was now running with. Thankfully though, just 2 weeks later on June 8th, GGG would be raided in Toronto, and what police would find would shock them. They found millions of dollars cash in their stash house, along with a whole lot of straps. And after running the ballistics on these weapons, police were able to tie the 4 GGG members to 4 separate deadly shootings between May 12th and May 26th. These dudes were wicked, and thankfully they were taken off the streets forever.
What?
But again, this is who Drake was publicly running with. You know, just reminding you of that. But either way, for Falstaff, this was their biggest loss, as Marquis was their top dog. So now, of course, they desperately wanted revenge on GGG. However, for the meantime, that was simply impossible. The 4 responsible members were now locked up. In top 5, he was out in Calabasas with Drake. Basically, Falstaff had nobody left to target, as top 5 was out with Drizzy Drake living his best life. Well, eventually, Falstaff would get frustrated and result into the worst possible
revenge. We haven't killed nobody in a minute.
At this point, GGG are full of themselves, and they think that they're completely untouchable. I mean, in the streets, they caught 4 consecutive bodies, and outside of it, they're running with Drake. So, obviously, they feel like they're on top of the world. Oh, and not to mention that the members who didn't get indicted are pretty much all in LA living around Drake. So, in their minds, they pretty much exited the beef with Falstaff. It's like, you can't reach us, and the members who did something, well, they're all in jail. Well, Falstaff was not okay with this, and basically, they were like, come back to Toronto to beef, or we're gonna target somebody very close to you. And that introduces us to Top 5's little brother by the name of Saeed Ali, also known as Foolish. Unlike Top 5, Foolish was not interested in the streets at all. Instead, he was all about basketball. He was a great player in high school and college, and after graduating, he dedicated his time to making sure his youngest brother could make it to the league. Yes, Top 5 and Foolish's youngest brother was so good that he broke Canada's all-time high school record.
Hoop dreams are coming true in Toronto after a high school basketball player hit rare air. Point guard Ahmed Ali led his team to victory this week, becoming just the 2nd Canadian player ever to score more than 100 points in a game. Ahmed Ali of the John Polyani CI Jaguars is joining me now in studio. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. That was a night I can't forget.
Was the adrenaline just pumping?
The fuck?
Like, I was in a zone, like, I don't... When my family was there too, and like the neighborhood, like I consider them family, and I don't know what to say. Like I was out of words, and I seen them cheering every shot I was hitting.
103 points.
However you book your flight.
Every shot you make out of
dedicating his time to helping his little brother. This was his excuse to not be in the streets or involved with GGG at all. But sadly, after Top 5 and the GGG members would leave Toronto, Foolish would become the next biggest target. July 30th, 2017. It's a quiet Sunday night as Foolish is walking to his local market like any other night. He walks to the market, buys a bag full of groceries, and then turns around and begins walking home. Little does he know, at this exact time, Falstaff members are spinning the block. Then at 11 p.m. as he's approaching Dufferin Street, a car pulls right beside him. They roll their window down, they begin yelling at the man, and then when they see him turn around, they realize exactly who it is. Oh my goodness, it's Top 5's little brother. So sadly, without hesitation, they begin blowing. This was the blow of all blows for Top 5. His little brother gone for no reason, just like that. And to make matters worse, an alleged Falstaff member named Clutch would constantly go online and make fun of Foolish. He would allegedly post videos on his stories stepping on grocery bags over and over and over. So as you would expect, Top 5 was devastated, hurt, and angry all at the same time. Despite now living the good life in LA with Drake, Top 5 now had an itch to get revenge for his brother.
Gotta pray to God, man.
First, the man who controlled Foolish would lose his life while walking in his project.
And the life they took him away. Yeah.
A mother in grief after the death of her 16-year-old son in the apartment building
he's only
where they
16.
lived.
He scored 103 points. The fuck?
Every time I come out my hallway, when I see the stairway he died, you know, I feel something, and my heart is bumping. I'm shaking.
Last Thursday, Hanad Abdullahi was gunned down in an apartment at 30 Falstaff Avenue.
Hanad was a good kid. He had so much life, so much ambition, so many things to look forward to. And his life was cut short, all because he lives here.
In a community county that has seen shootings before, today residents outside 30 Falstaff expressed frustration at what they say was a slow response by security.
They have been telling me exactly that it took that hour to the police to arrive.
Whether or not Top 5 had anything to do with this, we don't know. But what we do know is that GGG were on a mission to avenge the loss of Foolish. So I guess it's safe to say that this was GGG's get back. But for him, no amount of revenge was ever enough, and sadly, he would take it way too far. That takes us to January 30th, 2021. It's a freezing cold Saturday night in Toronto, and Top 5 is back in town. And on this night, he has no plans of kicking back or turning up. Instead, he wants to put in work. It's time to get some more revenge, so at 5 p.m., he gets picked up by his friend named Emmanuel. He hops in his gray Mercedes, and allegedly, this is when he begins planning a hit. Then together, they head to the ops territory, the 20, 30, and 40 blocks of Falstaff Avenue. They spin around the blocks for over an hour looking for rivals, but they don't see a soul outside. Top 5 is now increasingly frustrated, so he comes up with a second plan. He allegedly tells the driver to drop him off, let him run through the projects, and then he's going to text him to tell him where to pick him up. So at 8:45, Top 5 hops out and begins walking through the ops section. Then finally at 9 p.m., he sees somebody walk out of a building, and instantly he's on him. So he allegedly walks up to the man and makes a terrible decision. He then texts the driver to pull around the building, he runs to the car, and they drive back to his apartment.
Oh yeah, this is what he went to jail for? And it was the wrong dude!
He just scored on a Falstaff member, but sadly that's not the case at all. Yet another case of mistaken identity in the streets of Toronto. Hashim was not a member at all, instead just a regular student who happened to live in the projects. I'm not exactly sure whether Top 5 cared or not, because the rivals did do the same thing to his brother. Either way, this was a major case in Toronto, and police would eventually figure it out. They would officially issue an arrest warrant for Top 5, and this is when he decided to go on the run. He was now ducking U.S. Marshals while running around the city of Los Angeles. He's like, peace, catch me if you can. And, of course, they would eventually catch him. On October 7th, 2021, he'd eventually be arrested by the Los Angeles SWAT team. And in everyone's mind, Top 5 was completely cooked.
Yep,
now, as a result of this,
cooked.
you'd think that Drake would want to completely distance
Everybody
himself
thought he
from
was
Top 5,
cooked.
at least
Even his own boy Act thought he was
instead,
cooked.
he would buy him the most expensive lawyer in Canada by the name
Act
of
thought
Gary
he
Grill.
was cooked.
Regardless, this seemed like an impossible case to beat. They had his location through his phone, they had a motive, and of course they had all of the self-incriminating social media posts. Yeah, this is why everyone assumed that he would definitely be locked up for life, and you'll see, but we'll get there. In the meantime, let's focus back on Drake and what this all means for him. Now, without his self-proclaimed top shooter and G-Way and GGG being locked up, Drake now has no protection in Toronto. Or at least that's what it seemed like from the outside.
Everybody
Now,
get
if he
linked to
decided to
getting
stay in
locked
LA
up.
full-time, this really wouldn't matter. But Drake really wanted to go back to Toronto. By this time, he had already
Drake is all these
millions
niggas,
of dollars
it
into his
ain't
new
Drake's
beautiful
fault.
mansion.
But
So now he
when you
was
bring
committed to
attention to
living
niggas,
full-time
bro,
in the six, meaning that he needed
shit
some real
happens.
muscle in the streets. And little did people know,
Damn.
Drake still had one crew left that was rocking behind him.
That boy Drake
And
got
just
all
like
these
that, we're
niggas out your
introduced to Drake's
wallet.
final but probably most prominent gang ties in Toronto. That introduces us to Rapp's Up, which really isn't a classic gang. Instead, it's a collection of various hoods in Toronto, united to cause massive damage in the streets. Headed by crash-outs like Drake's close friends Fif and Baka, these guys are nothing to play with. And as far as Drake's connection to them, well, everyone believes that Chubbs was the introduction. And just like that, Fif and Baka became major parts of OVO, with Drake referring to them multiple times in songs. To the world, these were just random shout-outs by Drake, but to the streets of Toronto, these guys were like mini King Vons. Especially Fif, as this guy, well, you'll see. He was definitely one of them once, and unfortunately he was blamed for a very bad incident in the summer of 2017. July 23rd, 2017. It's a hot summer evening in Toronto, and a woman named Rochelle Lewis is celebrating her 28th birthday. To do this, she hosts a massive barbecue in her backyard with over 200 people in attendance. The barbecue goes well into the nighttime with good music, good vibes, and good food. That's until midnight when allegedly Fifth shows up. While walking around the backyard, he allegedly sees somebody he had recently gotten into an altercation with at the club. The specific man is sitting next to Rochelle with his arm around her as they're laughing together. Then out of nowhere, all they hear is bang.
Damn, both of them.
2 men are dead and 1 woman is in serious condition at hospital following an early morning shooting in the Scarborough area in the Morningside and Shepherd area. Now, it's tough to imagine, but up until just a few moments ago, this was an active crime scene, and most of this block was entirely boarded off from media or even pedestrians and vehicle traffic coming through. Police have just removed the police tape, and they are now continuing with their very active investigation. They're looking for a suspect or suspects. Trouble is, they're not quite sure who they're looking for just yet.
She has since been upgraded to serious but stable condition.
The 2 deceased are 33-year-old Ronaldo Cole and 30-year-old Dwayne Campbell, both of Toronto. Both are known to police, although they won't say in what capacity.
Now
we spoke with one of the owners of the home, and she confirmed that her daughter is the 3rd victim and remains in hospital. She didn't know the deceased, but police say they were invited to the party. She also didn't know how or why the shooting began. Police say they are still trying to gather those facts, too.
2 lives lost and Rochelle paralyzed everyone wanted his head.
Paralyzed?
And that takes us to September 14th, 2017. It's 2:30 in the morning in Rep Sub G-Way territory, and Fifth is hanging out in his project. In particular, he's hanging in the lobby with his friend on his building on Kennedy Road. Then at 2:45, 2 masked men in black hoodies walk inside the lobby. For whatever reason, Fifth plays it no mind, as it's pretty regular to be walking around masked up in his hood. And just as he predicted, the men walk right by him and into the stairwell. The men then exit the building from the back after realizing that, wait, that was Fifth. So instantly they walk down the street to their white Ford Focus, grab their blicks, and return to the building. Then from outside the building, they start dumping at Fifth. Bam! As Toronto police describe it, the incident was 100% targeted, even overkill, as they say that the suspects dumped over 50 times into Fifth. This had to be revenge for something, and I think we know what that something was. Either way, this was a major blow to Drake, as he and Fifth had become very close friends. And most importantly, this was yet another street war that Drake was now attached to. Pretty much all of his friends in Toronto had serious ops in the city and were destined for something to happen to them. Fifth was Drake's biggest crash out, so for something to happen to him meant that it could happen to anyone. Basically, by association, Drake had inherited the ops of G-Way, GGG, and now Reps Up. All of the bloodshed in the city involving his friends, and sadly, it didn't look like this could end anytime soon. So to all of you out there who thought that Drake's street lyrics were cap, I hope this video showed you that he had real situations in Toronto and many of his lyrics were actually
a lot
real.
of them got real situations when you in the rap game and you got, like, you know what I'm saying, a lot of money on.
But now we take an exit from the streets of Toronto and we enter all of Drake's beef in the rap industry. As we all know, Drake has been a very controversial figure in the rap industry since probably around 2011. He's beefed with rappers like Common, Swiss Beats, Tyga, Chris Brown, Nav, and of course Meek Mill, who he obliterated. Oh, and not to mention Pusha T, Kanye, DJ Drama, Joe Budden, The Weeknd, Rick Ross, Childish Gambino, XXX, Future, Jay-Z, Tory Lanez. Damn, this list is long. For whatever reason, everyone had a bone to pick with Drake throughout his career, mostly to do with women, but also to do with those who think Drake moves like a slime. However, after all these beefs, Drake seemingly came out victorious after every single one. That would of course be until 2024, when Kendrick Lamar would absolutely destroy him. The rap beef has been covered like a million times, but I guess I'll go over the basics. Basically, Drake and Kendrick had an ongoing feud dating back to like 2013, but nobody really picked up on it. There were subliminal disses here and there, but because nobody actually said each other's name, it never really picked up any traction. That would of course be until April of 2024 when they started publicly going back and forth. Diss song after diss song after diss song, they were cutting deep and nobody really knew who was winning yet. Then comes May 4th, when Kendrick drops the haymaker of all haymakers. Not Like Us, the biggest song of the year and possibly the biggest song of the year and possibly the biggest diss song of all time. Now, many people think that this is the end of Drake's career. I don't know about that, but
yeah, Drake too damn big.
But all of this is not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is that 3 days after the diss, something tragic would happen at Drake's mansion. May 7th, 2024.
A shooting outside music star Drake's Toronto mansion has left a security guard seriously wounded. Right now, investigators are looking for the gunman. Police are using video footage obtained at the scene to investigate the.
They're trying to say Kendrick Lamar. Then they're trying to say that it was a damn
He's hospitalized in serious condition.
gang that he's in beef
with. It's unclear whether Drake was home at the time. Toronto police acknowledged there is a rap feud between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, but say it's too early to determine.
Thankfully, Drake's security guard was okay, but regardless, this was a scary situation. Instantly, everyone started jumping to conclusions like, oh my goodness, the Compton minion did this to Drake. This is what happens when you mess with Compton. Little did these people know, Drake has various street beefs in Toronto that were definitely a part of this situation. Also, what do you guys think Compton is? I'm convinced everyone is stuck in 1992 because these days Compton isn't even like that. And even if it was still like that, do you guys think that it gives you superpowers to go do something in Toronto, a whole different country? Regardless, in my opinion, the shooting of Drake's bodyguard had nothing to do with Kendrick and everything to do with his local beefs in Toronto. And if we're being honest, nothing is going to happen between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Like, let's just be honest. That would be unless one of Kendrick's squabblers would take a chance on Drake's crew, but Drake's crew doesn't seem too worried about it. And that takes us back to Drake's self-proclaimed top shooter. As you can remember, Top 5 was facing life in prison for a 2021 murder. And based on all of the evidence, phone records, and motives, everyone believed that he was cooked. However, Drake was able to buy him Canada's most expensive lawyer, and somehow a miracle would occur.
The murder case against Hassan Ali, better known by his stage name Top 5, ended today when the prosecution stayed the charges stemming from a 2021 fatal shooting in North York.
This is a W.
Ali stepped out of the University Avenue
the way they was talking, they said this man was
3 years after he was arrested and charged with directing the murder of 20-year-old Hashim Omar Hashim, who was gunned down in his car at 40 Falstaff Avenue on January 31st, 2021.
I feel like Shohei Ohtani. I feel like a baseball player, superstar.
The murder case collapsed Monday morning before the Toronto rapper was set to stand trial in front of a jury when a judge excluded the key evidence his counsel, Gary Grill, calls entirely circumstantial.
The way that Mr. Ali was charged in the first place was as a result of his lyrics. It was a result
this motherfucker got paid top 10 million.
It's a result of his medium as a drill rap artist that attracted the attention of the police.
And if I bring this car now, you better talk low.
Grill says the Crown also alleged Ali was the mastermind of the 2021 shooting and was in the backseat of the suspect vehicle.
According to the Crown, there was somebody in a backseat of the car wearing a gray tracksuit.
Ali, who was 22 at the time of his arrest, was taken into custody in Los Angeles 8 months after the fatal shooting in North York and charged with first-degree murder.
Shout out to the Toronto South Detention Center for the hospitality.
He also spent time in Milton's Maplehurst complex, where in 2023 he managed to record a music video from behind bars, triggering an investigation from Ontario's Solicitor General.
I was 18 when I bought a gun. 22 when I shot your son.
Outside the courthouse, Ali denied any gang involvement and thanked his supporter.
Shout out to my boy Drake, man.
As for the 20-year-old who was killed,
R.I.P. I'm an innocent man. Hope they find whoever did that. I'm an innocent man, you know what
I mean? This is
just
wild,
like that, Drake's
bitch.
top demon is back on the streets. Now you'd think that after nearly getting life in prison, he'd want to lay low and change around his lifestyle. But again, we're talking about Top 5, Toronto's biggest crash out. And instead of laying low and changing his image, as soon as he gets out, he begins threatening Kendrick Lamar. First, he goes on live stream with DJ Ack, and he says that he needs Kendrick Lamar dead.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. My name's Hassan Ali.
Pleasure, brother.
Oh, shit, that's fucked up.
I haven't slept ever since. I prepared the little things, everything for my boy Kendrick. I want to greet him. I want to greet him so bad.
Kendrick come to the sick. Kendrick say about to book a show. He say about to shut the place down still.
You sure? probably gonna be with all the police. No, even he's with the police. He's done. He's done. He ain't coming. He ain't coming. Metro Boomin too.
It's a no-fly zone,
man. Metro Boomin, man. I see what you're trying to do, my boy, man. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. It ain't. Hold on, Ack. It ain't safe, Metro.
I've been hearing some. Yo, does the GGs still run the 6? Does the GGs and the Watson still run this? I just want to know.
Yo, we expanded like the WNBA. You know how the WNBA. There's HOC now. There's 16-year-old boys. I just came out. I seen a 16-year-old boy that told me I can't wait to see Kendrick. Stay home 5. It's on me. I don't gotta do the
Get Ricky extensions, huh?
For once. Usually it's me behind that. Yo, listen.
Get Ricky extensions.
I'm not. It's not a threat. I'm just looking for Metro Boomin and Kendrick Lamar. I'm doing my homework right now. I'm doing my task on them right now. Nothing incriminating. I'm just looking for them.
If you ran to Metro Boomin or Kendrick, what would that do?
Metro Boomin 1-on-1. I don't want no weapons, nothing. I'm knocking the fuck
out.
One
in the bag on that fight stuff.
Kendrick
sleeping.
But I don't think no one gonna be happy.
You passed the border, man. Trump's calling me. You passed the border, man. You passed the border, man.
They got security, guys, and beef. Nah.
I am Drake Shooter. 2024. I am Drake Shooter.
You don't know Broski's in Drake's ball league, eh? He's the starting shooting guard, man.
Listen, ain't nobody doing nothing dumb to Drake. Pedro, so that's all I gotta say. I'm home. And ain't no come to Toronto. Kendrick, your band. I need your band. Should have blew your head off when I was with Drake or the Ruler.
Oh,
what you calling it?
Not here with Easy.
Long live Drake or the Ruler. No, he ain't blessed me. He ain't blessed, man. He's switching on Drake. He's switching on Drake, yeah, man.
YG switching. So YG 400 from the West Coast. You think he's switching on Drake?
Where's Champagne Poppy? Yo, big up Champagne Poppy.
Link to the audio.
Your shooter's home. Big up Champagne Poppy. Yo, hit us home. Your bodyguard is home.
Top 5 makes some bold statements. Clearly, he's not scared of the Compton squabblers.
Ain't no scared.
Scared of what?
Kendrick.
Who got money?
Kendrick and his people.
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, you're scared of Kendrick?
Tell him come to Toronto. Swiss cheese.
What happened if he comes to Toronto?
I'll get the low, put on my Nike Tech Black. Tell YG get us a driver.
That is insane, bitch. Cause like,
where's Drive By King?
The fans looking hard as shit.
Drive By King right there. We can't do Kendrick Lamar on feet. We gotta make Drive By King.
Do you guys think the top 5 in GGG are actually serious about doing something to Kendrick Lamar? Well, after watching all of the crazy events of this video, what do you guys think about Drake?
It
all started after he got robbed in 2009, but do you guys think that Drake adopting all these gangs into OVO was a smart decision? And most importantly, do you think that his association with all these gangs will ever catch up to him? And I mean in the streets and also in the courtroom. Well, in my opinion, this was a pretty good video, and if you agree, please make sure to subscribe and like it as well. Also,
alright, we're back. So, hey, as y'all see for that, allow that shit, man. Sometimes it takes one event to change your whole motherfucking life, bitch. But like I said, man, who knows? Like, if that shit would never happen, Drake would have been still affiliated. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, bro, it's a gang in trenches anywhere in the world. You know what I'm saying? The suburbs be looking like they just a nice ass spot. Bitch, it can be some goofy ass psycho shit going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, don't always go, because this and that. They don't get down, bitch. Shit, anybody can get down in any place, anytime, anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And it just shows you that, hey, you will need some backup. You know what I'm saying? When you making that money out in the M&M status, bitch, you gotta, like, you know what I'm saying, really, you know what I'm saying? Because it's always like protecting the bag. You get what I'm saying? So it's like when you're performing and you trying to get to where you're trying to get to, yeah, you're gonna need some protection, but at the same time, the people you lock in with could be some on some whole other shit. You locking in with these niggas be on that shit, and they be on that shit. Motherfuckers can end up disappearing real quick. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful that a lot. There's still some motherfuckers who just didn't get caught up into the shit, because a lot of people crash out for that fame and celebrity status and that money on extra. You know what I'm saying? Like quick as fuck. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying, we can continue, like, you know what I'm saying, see people put in the spots but win. You know what I'm saying? But this was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Drake, you know what I'm saying, he been in a lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? And the people he locked in with be in a lot of shit. So hey, you just never know what can happen in life. We out this bitch. Hood, Northside, P Crippin, gang, Northside shit.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. Even though this is instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.